Okay, so we're going to get started. So, hello everyone. Welcome to StrikeUP Connects, Funding Fundamentals to Fuel Your Startup with Brianna Blaney from Pocketed, presented by the Scotiabank Women Initiative. My name is Heather Cannings, and I'm the lead for StrikeUP Canada. So, thank you so much for joining us today. Just a quick note before we begin. This webinar will be recorded and a copy will be sent to all registrants post-event. So feel free to rewatch or share with your network. We will have a Q&A session after Brianna's presentation, so please feel free to ask your questions in the chat throughout the session. We'll do our best to address as many of them as possible today, and you can also save your questions for the end to ask Brianna directly. So we will have some contact information so that you can reach out to Brianna's team from Pocketed directly if we don't have time to address all the questions or as intricate as some of your questions may be about grants. So a little bit about StrikeUP Connects. So if you're not familiar, so these webinars are a free platform that's offered throughout the year to continue to directly connect our women entrepreneurship community with online educational webinars, tools, and business resources offered by our growth partners. So you can catch any of our past webinars by heading to strikeup.ca/about/connect. So we'll throw that link in the chat for you. So today's presentation is brought to you with the support of the Scotiabank Women Initiative, who's partnered with Pocketed Grant Platform to empower their clients. So Scotiabank Women Initiative is a valued partner of StrikeUp and is an enterprise-wide program designed to increase economic and professional opportunities for their women clients, empowering them to succeed on their own terms. It provides equitable access to financial solutions, specialized education, and inclusive women-centric advisory services and mentorship to help people who identify as women or non-binary to pursue their best professional and financial futures. So for more information, visit scotiabankwomeninitiative.com. So now let's introduce Brianna Blaney, the CEO and co-founder of Pocketed. So money is a leading barrier to innovation and entrepreneurship, especially for women and equity-deserving groups. As an experienced founder, Brianna has lived this pain. She co-founded Pocketed to level the playing field, helping Canadian businesses easily access over $5.9 billion annually in grants, tax credits, and incentives. Since 2001, more than 14,000 companies have used Pocketed to access over $100 million. So together with her team, Brianna is on a mission to eliminate financial barriers for businesses. So if you want to learn more and sign up today at www.hellopocketed.io. And with that, I will now pass it over to Brianna to present Funding Fundamentals to Fuel Your Startup.
Awesome, Heather. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here. And Victoria, I know you're here assisting in the chat. So thank you to the whole StrikeUp team for making this happen. And everyone, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then we'll get started. So as Heather mentioned, I'm Brianna Blaney. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Pocketed. And we built Pocketed to simplify access to government funding for businesses. Yes, money is a huge barrier. I've built service-based companies. I've now built a software company. And the consistent thread in all of my entrepreneurial journeys is how freaking hard it is to get the money that you need to start and then grow your business. As founders, we lived that pain. We literally walked in your shoes, and we wanted to find a way to make this suck less. And that is why we built Pocketed. We see so much opportunity for grants and the role that grants can play in helping all of us scale our businesses, achieve new milestones, and get where we want to be. Our goal today is to help all of you leave with a few key takeaways, clearly understanding what fundable and non-fundable activities look like, so where you spend money in your business, which of those activities could you fund with grants, which ones can you not, a number of key considerations to help you assess your actual potential with grants. I'm also going to share a tool. Victoria will drop a link in the chat later on that you can actually use totally free to help you build your own funding strategy. So that's going to be a useful resource for you as well. And then, of course, tips and tricks. How can we actually leverage funding to do key things in our business, hire employees, invest in research and innovation, adopt new technology, invest in marketing, whatever it is. So we're going to cover a lot, and there will absolutely be time for Q&A. So I know Heather mentioned, but drop your questions in the chat. We want to make sure that this is engaging for you and that you're leaving here today with the information that you need. If for any reason we cannot get to your question, you can always contact our team, and you'll find our contact information directly on our website. Just navigate over to the contact tab, and our team's happy to support you. Stay tuned. Later in the session, we're actually going to provide you with a code to create a free Pocketed account. I'm going to talk about how you can leverage Pocketed throughout the session, and that code is going to help you gain access to a totally free subscription. So don't create one right now. Wait until the end of the session when you have the code so you can take advantage of it being totally free for yourself. Okay, let's start with understanding what this funding landscape looks like. So I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs here, and I recognize we're all in different stages. There will be content relevant for all of you, regardless of your stage. There's 3 primary funding types in business. First is debt and loans. It's things like getting a mortgage, accessing a line of credit, whatever you need, debt that is typically repayable with interest. Investors, they are going to give you money in exchange for equity or a chunk of your business. Literally, they take ownership in your business in exchange for giving you capital. And then grant funding. This magical funding source that is typically non-repayable and is largely free money for your business, but you do have to win it. Most of you are going to find that you're going to pursue some sort of combination of these funding types along your journey. We've used all types of funding in building Pocketed. Personally, I've used all 3 types of capital in building my businesses. Debt to access mortgages and lines of credit. We've raised money from investors to build Pocketed. And since 2021, have leveraged over $1 million in government funding to build this business. We've literally used more government funding, grants, and tax credits than we've raised from investors. It's not going to hopefully surprise you all to hear today that we're going to focus our session and our time together on grants. Why do we love this type of funding so much? Well, it's not taking equity in your business, which means that you retain full ownership. You get to control decision-making in your business. It's non-repayable, which for me, as somebody that's always been debt and risk averse, helps to de-risk the capital that you're taking. I've needed money to grow my businesses. And I can tell you a story. In my first company as a service business, it does human resources and recruitment consulting. And we were a little bit stuck at a certain size and we couldn't get past it. And for me, I know part of that's my own risk profile. But also it was access to capital that we could spend without guaranteeing we were going to make enough money to pay it off. So what we ended up doing was using grants to hire interns, summer interns, student interns. I remember distinctly the summer that we brought on 4 summer interns. Went from being a team of 2 to being a team of 6 because we were able to bring on 70% funded interns. So the government was going to pay 70% of their wages. That showed us that we had enough work for that number of people, more than enough work for that number of people. And we grew 500% that year, 500% that year. And it's only kept growing since. So it can absolutely help if you're similar to me and identify as being risk averse. It can help you take that step that perhaps you can't without the resources. And that's very real. And then finally, there definitely are some grants that are competitive, but there's others that are straight up an entitlement. If you apply and you're qualified, you're going to get it. So we love that. There's certainly an element, again, of de-risking your time investment in that process when it's an entitlement. So we love grants. It's probably not a secret. We're in the grants world. We love them. They can also be freaking painful. And while Pocketed definitely makes that process less painful, we don't totally solve what is broken in grants. And I want to be really transparent about that. We cannot fix that the government doesn't really have funding to hire people over the age of 30, for example. We can't fix that the government only allows you to hire people that are Canadian citizens, refugees, and permanent residents. So we cannot and do not pretend to fix grants. But what we can commit to doing is making it less painful and more successful for you to navigate grants as they are and meet the needs of your business. That's what we commit to. Okay, let's pop back to these 3 types of funding for a minute. I want to be really clear. Yes, grants are this almost free type of capital for your business, which does indeed make them magical, but every type of capital you're ever going to access for your business requires a rate of return. That's still true with grants. What does that mean? Well, with debt and loans, you have to pay back with interest. This is a really clear rate of return. They're expecting the interest back from you and the principal. With investors, they generally want at least a 10x return on their investment. And with grants, it's no exception. The government is expecting you to create a benefit to Canada in some way. That could be because you're hiring, you're creating a job. It could be because you're investing in training and accessing funding to train your team, you're upskilling the workforce. But there has to be a benefit to Canada. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you the funding that I think is the real MVP, which is revenue. So yes, we talk a lot about other types of capital that are going to come in from an external source. Revenue is arguably an external source, but it's earned. So yes, you still have a rate of return that's expected. You're delivering a product, you're delivering a service, you're delivering an experience in exchange for that revenue. But in our opinion, this is the true MVP. It's validation of what you're building. We don't talk about it enough. I don't think it gets enough time in the headlines, but it is such a powerful and scalable way to keep building your business. And we like to use this as our baseline and then the other types of capital layered in to help you accelerate your growth, but always focus on revenue and profitability. I'm not going to belabor that, but it's really important. So the government funding landscape. There is over $5.9 billion, as Heather shared, that is distributed every year in just an average year. During COVID, this skyrocketed to like wild, never before seen numbers. So it goes to all types of businesses. I want to demystify that for everyone right up front. It doesn't matter if you're here today building an e-commerce business, building a technology startup, a micro farm, a restaurant, a professional services firm. It doesn't matter what type of company you are building, there is government funding for you, period. What you're going to learn today, and what I'm probably going to talk about more than you want to hear, is that it has less to do with the type of business you're building and a lot more to do with how you spend money in your business on a day-to-day basis to get to the next milestone that you're looking to reach. So I will unpack that more. And this $5.9 billion is distributed through a ton of programs. Literally right now, when I check, well, not right now, I checked last night at like 1 a.m, PST, there was 1,782 funding programs open and accepting applications in Canada. That's almost 1,800 funding opportunities that you can consider and pursue, and more than 100 of those are closing in the next 30 days worth millions of dollars for any one company if one company won them all. So grants come and they go, and they often change with very little warning. That's one of the many things that makes grants complex, which is why we built Pocketed. When you make your Pocketed account, you are automatically matched with your eligible funding programs, and it's updated in real time. So that means that you're never missing opportunities. You're hearing about programs that match to your business, and you're able to access them yourself directly in the platform anytime you want. And again, with the code I'm going to give you later today, totally free. So it's a resource to help you identify the right programs for your business. Because otherwise, I don't know about you, but when I look at 1,700 programs, even as somebody that works in this space, I feel overwhelmed. So we built this tool to help de-overwhelm that. I don't think it's a word, but reduce the overwhelm of that. What does it look like to be a grant-ready company? Should you be looking at grants is maybe a question that you're asking yourself. So understanding the baseline criteria, from day one, you should be looking at grants. From the minute you have an idea, you should be starting to consider grants and where they'll fit overall in your funding journey. We also want to understand that grants are competitive. So some are going to be an entitlement based on eligibility. Others are discretionary or super competitive. So what does it look like to be grant ready? Generally speaking, you're incorporated. This doesn't necessarily mean incorporated. A better term here would be registered. You are a registered business. Not to say there's nothing for you if you're not. On average, companies that are incorporated match with over 100 programs, and companies that are not match with 17. So there's still something for you if you're not incorporated. It just looks a little bit different, and you have fewer programs to choose from. You also have to have access to capital. And this is probably the thing that frustrates people the most about grants, in my experience. Grants in Canada work on two structures. They will either reimburse you for eligible money you've spent once you've signed an agreement, or they're going to match you dollar for dollar. For every dollar you put in, they're going to give you $1 back. So it's really important to understand that you do have to have some capital to successfully use grants. There is almost no program on the planet that's just going to give you a pool of funding you can spend. It doesn't exist. And then the final piece that really is what we call your baseline to being grant ready is that you either have employees on payroll or you're willing to add employees to payroll. And the reason for this is that there's over $1 billion in small hiring grants alone every year. Those are grants that are under $30,000 and are going to subsidize wages for you to hire people. And again, the reason for this is clear. Government funding supports government initiatives and priorities. Our government wants to create jobs for Canadians, quality jobs for Canadians. So you see that structured in how so many programs are distributed. Even some of the big R&D funding programs that are called R&D actually contribute through wage subsidies. So we will talk more about that and share some examples, but that is really what we call the baseline. And I understand payroll can be freaking daunting. I get it. I've been in your shoes. There are tools that make it less painful, but we understand it can be daunting. So this is your baseline. Then there's also what we consider to be highly eligible. So there's everyone, and then there are the folks that are probably going to have access to more options than others. For example, if you're in a priority industry, that could be clean tech, agriculture, life sciences, technology, manufacturing, logistics. Again, think about government priorities. You will have more options of very sector-specific programs. If you're investing in anything ESG related in your business, so anything environmental, clean tech, how are we reducing GHG emissions? It doesn't matter if your business isn't a clean tech business. If you're introducing initiatives into your business, there's capital for that. My co-founder, Aria, talks a lot about an example of a food truck that she helped secure funding for a compost program. A food truck. There's money there for you. And then finally, growing and evolving. You're hiring, you're expanding, you're digitizing, you're researching, you're innovating. You're spending money on more than just business as usual. Those are the factors that make you highly, highly eligible. All of you should have a pocketed account, but especially these folks need to be disciplined in how you're looking at funding for your business proactively. And grants, I've already mentioned it a couple of times, but I'm going to talk more about it over for the next few minutes. Grants focus on fundable activities that benefit Canada. So for example, if you're hiring, you're creating jobs in the economy. If you're expanding beyond Canada, you're growing our GDP and international presence. There's market expansion funding for that. If you're investing in new innovation and researching new solutions, there's R&D funding for that. So in more detail, what do fundable activities look like and what are some examples? Well, for R&D, again, it's developing innovative products and services, conducting any sort of scientific or technology research, hiring and job creation. You are hiring new employees. Grants don't fund existing employees. They also don't fund family, but hiring new employees, especially students. The government has lots of programs that are recurring for students. And again, we built Pocketed from an idea to an actual product shipped in people's hands in 14 weeks, exclusively using funded interns. That's it. At one point, 95% of our payroll was covered by grants. And today, despite the fact that we've certainly grown, we've raised money from investors, we have capital. From that standpoint, we still access $7,000 wage subsidies every single school semester because that's the cycles that they work on. It's powerful. Technology adoption, whether it's implementing new technologies into your business to improve efficiency, integrating advanced software or hardware solutions, export and market expansion. So I know some folks here likely do international work, attending trade shows, for example. You want to expand to a new international market. There is capital for that. It's pretty seasonal, but there is capital for that. Training and skill development. You want to level up your team. You want to pay for them to go through a training program. You want to bring somebody in to run a DEI training program. Some of you in the room today might be trainers yourselves. That may be a service that you offer. Your clients can access subsidies to pay for your training. Think about how that enhances your value proposition as a trainer. And we work with companies all the time, helping to build out application packages for their training programs. Environmental sustainability, so eco-friendly practices, innovation and startups, of course, is a big category of funding. Community and social impact, so initiatives that are going to contribute to the local economy, particularly projects of positive social impact, job creation, et cetera. Energy efficiency, so like we know that there's new grants deploying in BC, for example, and rebates through BC Hydro around retrofitting furnaces. Agriculture and agribusiness, whether it's adopting modern farm practices, initiatives that support sustainable agriculture, food processing, we're really focused on that right now as a nation. And then manufacturing upgrades. So how do we adopt advanced manufacturing technologies, upgrade our processes to increase our efficiency? A lot of this came out of COVID when we saw just how broken things were in a lot of our structures in Canada. So these are examples of fundable activities. To help you contrast that, here are some examples of things that not an absolute, but are typically not funded by grants. There are very few absolutes in grants, but these are things that are typically not funded. So generally speaking, if you're just operating business as usual, not going to be funded. If you're just maintaining, it's generally speaking not going to be funded unless you're doing something that's new. So for example, if you have two people that work in your business, it's you and somebody that works for you, and that person moves on for any reason from the business, and you have to hire somebody new to work with you, that person and that could be funded because it's net new. Yes, you're not adding more headcount, but you're adding a new person, so you could still fund it. Routine operations, so day-to-day expenses like existing employee salaries, rent, utilities, standard overhead, not fundable. Marketing and advertising, I'm always the bearer of bad news with this one. It's our most common ask because I'm looking for money to invest in marketing or paid ads, not really funded. There's a couple of exceptions. One is through export funding, which will indeed pay for you to work with marketing firms. There's also some small grants. We're going to talk about one, a micro grant today, that will give you a small subsidy and also time with a marketer for consulting. So there are definitely some workarounds. My favorite creative workaround is you can't generally get $5,000 for marketing, but you may get $5,000 to hire a marketer. So that's a way to think about and reframe that for yourself. Existing employees and family, again, we've talked about this, not fundable. You're also not fundable generally as a founder. General business maintenance, so standard maintenance activities that don't actually drive clear innovation or growth. Debt repayment, not surprising. And then personal expenses, also not surprising. CRA doesn't like that in general. And then buying a business. There's not really programs that will buy a business. If anyone here is a franchise owner, also, that tends to be a category that is a little bit more nuanced to successfully access funding. Not impossible, but I encourage you to reach out to our team through our contact form and or through our chat, and they can support you and give you more context around that. So this is what's fundable, not fundable. We talked about what it looks like to be a fundable business. Now let's actually work through how to build the framework of your funding strategy. And Victoria will drop in the chat a link for all of you to download a free funding roadmap tool that we've built. I encourage you to use it. It's going to help you think through this and stay on top of it for yourself, because grants do require some planning to successfully navigate the complexities. There's 3 key components. What are the projects and initiatives that you're building and investing in? What are the timelines of those projects? That informs when you need to be looking for funding. And I'll unpack that in a second. And then the benefit to Canada. If you cannot effectively articulate the benefit to Canada, the government is not going to see it. And they want to fund you. They're not looking for reasons not to fund you, but you need to help make it easy. Just like if you're applying for a job, you want to make it easy by writing a great cover letter, having a tailored resume. The same thing is true when you're applying for grants. You want to do an effective job of articulating, number one, how your application aligns with the program, but also how it creates a bona fide benefit to the country. I'm going to talk about timelines for a quick second, and then we're going to keep moving. The government doesn't really care about when you want money. They don't. And that sucks. And it's really annoying. And it would be great if they did, but they don't. So that means that we have to be really proactive with how we are pursuing funding and thinking about it. There's cycles in a year that we know the government deploys certain programs, and certain types of programs open on a recurring basis. That's true. Your pocketed account will help you identify that and stay on top of it. But you need to be proactive. It's why we encourage you to look at least 1 year out, ideally 2 to 3 years out, to understand where am I trying to get to? Because there might be an awesome program that opens today that isn't opening again for 3 more years. There's great examples of that in the publishing space. So if you are in that category and you have projects that you know you want to invest in over the longer term, start thinking about that now. It's never too early to start thinking about it. So to walk through this, and I encourage you all of you to open up a notepad, pull out a piece of paper, go through this with me. We're going to right now help you identify your grants potential. I want to be very, very clear again. There's almost no absolutes, and that's what makes grants complex. But I want to help you as much as I can understand what's going to be generally relatable for all of you. If you have specific questions, reach out to us. Our team is happy to help. But let's work through this exercise. Is your business incorporated? Yes or no? Are you currently generating revenue? It's okay if you're not. We raised money and accessed hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants before we were making money. How much revenue, if yes, how much revenue did you generate in the last 12 months? Like literally, how much would be on your tax return? Be honest. The reason we ask this is that over 100 grand tends to unlock many programs, but over 100 million Would be great to be there, but over 100 million tends to size you out of most programs. Do you have or are you hiring employees on payroll today? And then do you have access to capital? This can be money that you've invested from your own savings. It can be money you've raised from investors, debt you've accessed through a line of credit you had. It could be revenue you're generating. It can be a gift that you got. It can come from anywhere, but do you have some access to capital? I'll qualify that also with think about how much. If you answered no to number one, you're not incorporated, again, totally fine. There's still funding programs for you. Just gonna flag this out of interest. You don't ever use this as your only decision point, but if you're curious to see how grants distribute across the country, roughly 30% of programs are available regardless of your location. So there's 30% that are generally available federally. And then you see here a breakdown by province. So it's alphabetical. And what you'll notice is that Quebec, BC, Ontario, and Alberta have the highest density of funding. So there's the most funding open, the largest number of programs open in these provinces. What's interesting is that this looks quite different depending on your industry. So I was surprised. I ran a session last week in agriculture. Don't know if anyone here is in the ag space, but it's not this same list. There's maritime provinces. And of course, provinces like Saskatchewan on that list. So it does depend a little bit on what you're building, but it's interesting to see where funding is available. And it is important to consider this as part of your decision set, along with your lawyer and your accountant giving you much broader advice, but it's interesting. So if you ever have questions, reach out to our team and we're always happy to share more. Okay, so we talked about whether or not you're eligible. You've all done that exercise. Awesome. Now let's help you start thinking through how we're going to identify relevant programs. Let's think about what you have planned in 2024, and I would challenge you to also think about 2025. Are you hiring in the next 12 months? How many hires? What types of positions? Are you exporting beyond Canada in the next 24 months? Are you investing in research and development, building innovation? Are you pursuing any green initiatives or projects? And do you plan to train your team? Those answers are going to help you navigate your matches in Pocketed. Because yes, there's 1,782 programs currently open, but you're only going to match with maybe 173. That's going to be the number of programs that are eligible to you. The ones that are relevant for you, for any one of those projects, is tiny. It's maybe 3. So we want you to think through this logic of what are you needing to spend money on in your business? What are those projects and programs that you are pursuing? Because that is going to help you go from 173 down to the 3 you should actually be putting money or your resources into. Because as founders, we are busy. I am overwhelmed most of the time. Some of you can maybe relate to that. It's a lot all the freaking time. And for me, so much feels hard all the time. So if we can focus our energy and resources in where it's going to have the best impact and ROI, that's what we want to help you do. And that funding roadmap tool that you have all hopefully downloaded is going to allow you to do that for yourself. If you want help, we do offer consulting. So you're welcome to reach out to us, but that tool will help you do it on your own. The final piece, of course, is how is your project going to benefit Canada? Because you have to be able to articulate that. I've said it already, and I'm going to say it again. If you cannot tell us why your project matters, bigger than just you, the government's not going to see it. Help them fund you. Help them give you a yes. And that's going to do a lot of that for you. Okay, so quick recap. Eligible doesn't mean relevant. We don't want you pursuing 173 programs. Nobody has time for that. We want you to pursue the 3 that are going to be most relevant for what you're looking to fund right now. Grants are cyclical and they're time sensitive. So again, it's not really about our timeline. So we need to be willing and able to adjust to the government. And this piece I didn't actually talk about, but I will flag. There's the stated criteria of grants, which yes, you'll see summarized in your Pocketed account for any given program. But then there's all the unspoken criteria for grants, the things that we know from working with funders, from seeing the patterns of who they've awarded funding to. So you will also see that, not actually the basic account, but you can see that in Pocketed through a plus account. We show you the insights. So there's the unspoken criteria that are important to understand as well. And building relationships yourself directly with a funder, if there's a large program you want to pursue, will also help with that. Okay, we're going to dive into programs because I know we're already more than halfway through. So let's explore a handful of programs that I think are quite interesting. So first of all, this is one of those unique programs that offer the micro grant to really early stage companies. So it's a $1,500 grant for Canadian business owners that are starting and growing their companies. It will fund eligible activities like purchasing equipment, marketing, hard to find those, and more. You have to be a new business, so less than 1 year old, and you have to have less than 10K in revenue. But this is a cool program. No credit check is in place. You've got to have a business plan. You have to have a pitch deck. So there's a handful of things, but this is an interesting program. The Student Work Placement Program, so SWIP. There's a bunch of examples. Victoria is going to share one specific program directly in the chat, but this is one of our favorite categories of funding. 18 different funders distribute this throughout the country. Some of them are industry specific, others are based on provinces. There's all sorts of criteria. They're all also a little bit different. This is an example of where grants are complex, and Pocketed will help you by only matching you to the funders of the 18 for which you are eligible to even consider. But this funding is awesome. And if you are early stage, looking or considering bringing on your first employee, this can be a great soft step forward. It's the first funding that we ever used in my service company was this. We hired Canadian students to work with our business, and they were funded 70% of their wages were funded to a max of $7,000. So that meant that we had unbelievable, qualified, engaged people who worked with us, but the government paid the majority of their wages. So this is awesome. A challenge with these grants is that you generally have to apply 4 months before that person starts working with you. So my favorite funder is open right now. They're already 90% subscribed of their funding within less than a week. So you've got to move fast. And you have to apply with your candidate. So you've got to hire someone and then apply to get them approved. We often will make our offers conditional on getting that funding approved because we recognize that gap is real. And at stages in building our businesses, for me, I couldn't have afforded to hire an intern unless I got the funding. So we've made our offers conditional to help us get around that. Our team supports with this. If you have questions about this program, please reach out. My favorite part, 2 pieces. Number 1, you can fund the same person multiple times. So 4 months is short, really short for the amount of training that goes into bringing anyone into your business. We generally look for interns we can fund for 8 who are committing to 8 months of full-time work. You'll fund that person for 2 semesters, so 2 funding cycles, and that's allowed. Then you can actually fund them through other funders as well. Fun fact. And then the other thing I love, it's one of the few ways you can fund existing employees. So if you have an existing employee who goes back to school, a registered post-secondary institution, you can fund them. They're eligible. So awesome. We've done lots of creative things here to also motivate the team and support them in their educational pursuits. Happy to chat offline with anyone on that. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Okay. Canada Digital Adoption Plan. Hopefully most of you here today have heard about this program. It's been around for a couple of years now. I think it has another year and a bit left. They've already closed off the bigger version of this, but the small one is still available. There's a ton of funders and every province has different funders. So we're not listing a funder here, but go and find the right one for your province. When you make your account, you can then search in your matches and you'll see the one that's relevant for you based on where you're located in your business. So this provides a small micro grant of $2,400 to register Canadian businesses. There are a handful of criteria around your revenue and size. So they're definitely, it's not for everybody. You've got to have over $30,000 in revenue if you're independent. So there are definitely some gates here, but it can be great. We used this ourselves to gain access to consulting and then to pay for marketing software. It literally paid for our annual subscriptions for a number of software solutions to help us increase functionality on our website and through our marketing materials. So it's wonderful. It gives you consulting and it gives you the micro grant. So I recommend it, particularly if you're early stage. $2,400 to offset your subscriptions. Heck yes, sign me up. That's a lot of money when you're getting started, and in general, that should probably be thought of as a lot of money. Rockstar Emerging Tech. This is more of an investment than a grant, but it is an interesting program that focuses on 4 streams of eligibility. Industry and analytics, so improving the use of production facilities for more efficient processes. Smart cities and societies, apps that positively influence how we live and interact. Digital health innovations, technology innovations that improve the quality, speed, and precision in delivering healthcare. And data privacy and security, so supporting technologies that cater to data stewardship, democratized solutions and information safety. So this is really cool, and specifically in the subsectors of energy, agri-food, and emerging technology. So it will co-invest all the way up to Series B. So if you're in the innovation space, this could be an interesting program for you to consider. And if you are here and you're investing in R&D, I actually only added this program last night when I went back to to an understanding of who is here today and who signed up. And I know that there are a number of folks that are in innovation. You are doing research or maybe building technology. This program and funder, it's actually a funder, should be on your radar. IRAP is exceptional, and they're also deeply misunderstood. They really operate more like a venture capital fund than a typical grant funder. They're not, they don't take equity in your business, but they operate more like one. So you want to show up to them the same way you would show up to an investor. You want to be ready to pitch them. They invest in roughly 10% of the ventures that get put in front of them in a year. And for us, I'll tell you my own experience, we built a relationship with our industrial technology advisor, or ITA. It's almost like your account manager. We built a relationship with our ITA for years before we got money from him. We started building a relationship with him in a previous startup we were building. Never got money there. When we started building Pocketed, we also didn't get money right away. But what we did get was advice and support and connections and network. And those were worth absolute gold, frankly, more than money would have been at the time. Our ITA introduced us to folks that helped us oversubscribe our beta in less than 48 hours by more than 500%. So it is so worth it to build a relationship with your ITA, but treat it like a relationship. Earn it. Ask for their advice. They come from industry. They have relevant expertise for you, and they want to help you. Even if they can't give you money, they may be able to help you access other types of programs. They will also do things like pay your lawyers, pay for IP protection, pay for trademarks. They will do lots of things beyond just the big R&D funding that everyone knows them for. So awesome funder. You need to build a relationship. You have to go through their process. There's no other way around it. It's literally a phone number to call, which is super old school, but they will connect you and match you with the right ITA or account manager based on what you're building and your region. So build a relationship. Now we're going to talk about some tips to set yourself up for success, and we're going to end with some examples of case studies because I think it's helpful to see who are these businesses that are getting money and what are they getting money for. Okay, tips to set yourself up for success. The first one, for a whole bunch of women founders, do not limit yourself to the women money, period. We've all seen the venture funds that are created to invest in women. Often, they write smaller checks. Does anyone want to guess? We know less than 3% of venture funding goes to women. That's true. And people are welcome to guess in the chat. Does anybody want to guess what percentage of grants are just for women? Less than 2%. Less than 2% of grants are just for women, even from a government that prioritizes making a change for equity-deserving communities. So I'm going to offer a bit of a reframe on that. Yes, 2% of funding is only for women, but what that also means is that we can access the whole 98%. We can access everything. The 100% of grants out there, we are not precluded from accessing any of it. So go after all of it. And I share this because so often I'm asked, I'm a woman, I'm building a business, what money exists for me? And the answer, as much as it's not what you want to hear, is there is no money that exists for you just because you're a woman building a business. There is none. Go back to the basics of what are you spending money on? Where are you deploying capital on a day-to-day basis to achieve milestones and grow your business? That is going to be what informs the money that's available to you. As a woman, you will have priority access to many programs. Take advantage of that. But do not limit yourself to the money that is only there for you as a woman. Second tip, understand your true grants potential and strategize accordingly. You've already gone through this, but again, baseline. Are you incorporated in Canada? Do you have employees on payroll? Do you have access to capital? If yes, you are grant ready. Are you in a priority industry and are you investing in fundable activities? If yes, then you're highly eligible for grants. If you're in that highly eligible facts category, I would encourage you to get in touch with our team. We have an invite-only solution that goes beyond software for highly eligible companies. It guarantees funding for you. And if you're a Scotiabank business client, you can actually gain access to that for free, paid for by them. And we have incredible success rates. On average, companies pursue 5 programs in their first 6 months through our Pocketed Concierge solution. So reach out to our team if you think you're in that category. If you're not sure, our software is actually going to tell you if you're in that category. Tip number 3, grants are a long game. It's a lot of hurry up and wait. And we talked about that already around the timing. It doesn't really matter when you want funding. It's really about when the government's looking to deploy capital. So if you wait for a program to open and then you don't jump on it right away, you're likely to miss that opportunity. And this is critically important right now. Grants over the last 18 months have become astronomically more competitive. And I can tell you because we see the data on what people are engaging with on our platform. Everybody needs money. Debt is more expensive. It's harder to get investment. Valuations suck. So people are looking for other options, and grants are certainly on that list, which means more people are competing for not a larger pie. It's why using grant writers for many programs that you maybe would have pursued on your own before now makes sense in a way it frankly didn't 2 years ago. So be disciplined, move fast, planning ahead will help you do that. Again, I talked about the publishing industry. There's funding that opens once every 3 years. And if you miss it, you are SOL. That sucks. So create your Pocket account, set up notifications for yourself because you can do that and control them in the platform. We'll also tell you about other things that are relevant for you, but set up notifications on the programs that you really want. That will help to make sure that you don't miss it. As a general rule of thumb, most of you should be logging in at least once a month to look at what's there and considering how it links to your business strategy, and always during strat planning. Okay, moving forward. It's really hard to start, we know that, but getting started is the most important piece. We hear a lot, interns are too hard to onboard, so I don't want student funding. I mean, they can be. They also don't have to be. You can build repeatable structures for yourself, just like anything in business. Choose one role and always have an intern in that role. I can tell you the role that we do that with in one of my companies is social media. We always have interns run it. It's great. We've built SOPs, documentation, there's videos, there's Looms, there's everything. So we can onboard them in a day and they can be successful by day 2. So you have to think about that. And again, you find a way, because if you don't, you're literally leaving money on the table. And I don't know about you, but for the most part in my building journey, even today, I cannot afford to do that. I cannot. We are like, I just can't. So if you can relate to that, make it a priority. Be creative when you're thinking about funding. And then of course, in a group of entrepreneurs, this is not going to surprise you. You have 2 choices. You can either do the work or you can hire someone to do the work. Otherwise, you're not getting funded. It's that simple. And it still requires you to put in the work. You still need to look at your list of matches and identify the programs that are relevant for your business. There is simply no alternative. If you don't have capacity for that, I totally get it. I've been there. Find someone that will do it for you. Pocketed has that available to you. But when you're early stage, wherever possible, I encourage you to do it for yourself, because the more of the money you can retain for yourself, the better, of course, when you're really early and getting started. So again, grants are really competitive. If you're too busy, if it's your first time applying, if the funding program that you're pursuing is large or complex, I encourage you to consider hiring a grant writer. You'll access them directly through Pocketed. They have awesome success rates and they will help you get ahead on this front. So you will work with us in 3 ways. You're going to use software totally free with the code you're going to get shortly. Our Pocketed Concierge solution is again purpose-built and invite only for highly eligible companies. It has a funding guarantee or your money back. And then grant writing. It's available to everybody, whether you subscribe or not. We can help you submit applications for different programs you want to pursue. And Heather, I'm going to run through a handful of case studies quickly, and then I'm going to hand over to you for Q&A. Okay, we'll dive in. This is a food processor based in Ontario. They were awarded over $100,000 in their first 5 months of working with Pocketed, over $50,000 for marketing, production, and product development through the Girl Ontario Market Initiative, $28,000 in wage subsidies for a number of short-term hires, and $20,000 in support for international market expansion. That's a lot of money, $100,000 for $1 million company. 10% of what they earn in the year in grants that they never have to pay back and didn't have to do the work for. Awesome. Another e-commerce company, $350,000 in annual revenue. They secured $100,000 to hire their first employee. And stories like this are my favorite. They've also pursued competitions, market expansion, and digitization funding. And again, they're an e-commerce company. Counseling practice, service-based businesses are fundable too. Please do not think that you're not. $100,000 in annual revenue, and she's gotten more in government funding than she earns in a year in revenue. And all types of things, funding for subsidizing employees, building an app, an MVP of her app, semifinals in a corporate competition. There's a lot of different things that she's been successful with. And then a nonprofit actually got a $455,000 grant with Pocketed Concierge and grant writing for a Red Cross grant. So it's a nonprofit that is building technology to scale their social impact. They're also pursuing hiring subsidies in corporate competitions. So lots of different examples. I'll end off with two more, and then I'm going to open up to the Q&A. Micro farm client is pursuing a $50,000 grassroots growth initiative funding program, and they do $100,000 in annual revenue. So this is 50% of what they earn in a year, and they've already been awarded $50K to increase public engagement and support for ag. So really cool. And this is a brilliant company. They actually won the forum pitch a couple of years ago. Woman-owned, woman-founded solo founder, which is really cool and unusual in the hardware space, especially. Over $1 million in annual revenue. They've secured $25,000 in subsidies to build their team. They've won over $125,000 through other programs that we've identified for them, and they're pursuing more and more and more. So there's so much. These are very different companies at very different stages all across the country. And the consistent factor is that they've all been funded. There's money out there, regardless of the kind of business that you're building, and to subsidize all sorts of activities in your business. With that said, I'm going to open up to the Q&A, and Heather, I'm going to put this up on the screen. Pocketed X StrikeUp is your code to get a free Pocketed account. Victoria will share a link directly in the chat as well. Hopefully that will reapply or automatically apply the code for you so you can create your account. If you already have a Pocketed account, you can still add the code to your account to get free access to a Pocketed Basic subscription. Reach out to our team and they'll help you with the instructions around that. Heather, I'm going to keep this up for maybe another minute or so, and then I'll take it off so we can actually see each other.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Brianna. I know I personally learned so much throughout this presentation. We had some really great questions, and I think you did a fantastic job of kind of running through the general landscape of grants and then giving us some really, really incredible examples of what's out there. So we'll run through a couple of the questions that we've got here. So we have a few from Cynthia. So one of her questions was kind of around how Pocketed works. So she had a question about whether Pocketed keeps anything from the grants. Is there a percentage? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so with grant writing, we offer 3 fee structures depending on the program and the client. When we have clients on our concierge product, whenever possible, we try to do success-based. So we're de-risking that investment for you. We get it. Working with a grant writer is an investment. And if we can make it so you're only paying when you're awarded money, that's always our preference from a business standpoint. And my co-founder and I made that choice early on because we get it. It sucks to have to spend money if you're not guaranteed money. So on average, a success fee is 20% of the awarded value. We also do some programs where it's only a project fee that is charged up front. Generally speaking, those are very, very large programs where the clients are choosing that structure because it's much more cost effective for them. And then the final piece is hybrid, where we'll often charge a small deposit with the balance due on success. So the average and the high end would be at the 20%. And then Cynthia goes down from there depending on the structure. If we're shouldering all the risk, you're going to pay more. But if we're sharing in the risk, you're going to pay less.
Makes sense. Perfect. So Cynthia had another couple of questions that kind of sat around wage subsidies. So I know we talked a lot about student eligibility from an employee perspective. Do you find that there's typically grants out there where you can hire seniors that have experience as well, whereas more grant funding out there that you've seen that's more specific to students?
Yeah, there's almost no funding for anybody over the age of 30 unless they're a student, which is a definite pain point. I know I talked about that during my presentation. We can't fix what's broken in grants. Our job is to help you navigate it. No, the government doesn't really invest in hiring people that are more mature, which is, in my opinion, a huge gap. At one point, a couple of years ago, we did see some programs for retirees coming back into the workforce. That was awesome because I think there's so much value being lost and missed out because of this. But the answer, Cynthia, right now is no, unless they're a student. So it's unfortunate. And you can get students, for example, who are, later in their career, going back to school to pursue something. they're still eligible. There is no age gap on student wage subsidies. There's only an age gap on youth wage subsidies, which are different. They're two different categories. We can maybe, Heather, at another time, we'll do a whole session just on hiring grants because there's so much complexity and nuance, and there's 5 key types of hiring grants. We've only really talked about 2 of them now, but I see another question. Do you mind if I jump into this question that I see about like people that are talking about problems they see with hiring grants? Yeah, Tara, Canada Summer Jobs. Oh, we get it. We totally get it. And that is an unusual program. Most programs aren't like that. Most programs you're going to know long before the employee's start date. So if you're pursuing Canada Summer Jobs, then you should also be pursuing other hiring grants for students and or youth that are frankly going to give you a higher funding percentage and a higher dollar value. Canada Summer Jobs generally only subsidizes 50% of minimum wage for 8 weeks for a for-profit company. It's not a lot of money. Now, when you can get $7,000 for that same person if they're a student through any of the other student programs, or up to $20,000 or even $30,000 through a youth wage subsidy. In British Columbia, there's programs that will help you hire people that don't currently have a job. Those can be stacked with programs like Canada Summer Jobs, and they'll give you $12,000 if that person's under 30, or less than that if they're over 30. So Cynthia, that would be the other category, is like the unemployment grants. They don't exist in every province, and they're not always available, but they will let you hire anyone age-wise. Always hiring grants, Canadian citizen, refugee, or permanent resident, always. There's just no negotiating on that, except for one research program. But unless anyone asks about it, I won't get into it.
Perfect. I think kind of a jump off from Tara's comment there as well about that Canada Summer Jobs grant. She says, I struggle with hiring for grants that require applicants to be under 30 years old, since asking age or discriminating against age is illegal. Do you have words around this while making this still a legal process in question?
Totally. Yes, it's wild. It's shocking to me. I think about this often, especially because my whole background is in the HR and people space. So how we do it successfully is we list the criteria and we simply ask candidates to confirm yes or no whether they meet the criteria. We don't ask them to clarify which one they do or don't meet. We just say, these are the criteria. Do you meet this eligibility criteria? Yes or no. So that's how we've managed to get around it without getting into protected grounds territory. But I agree, it feels icky. It just does.
That makes sense. Yeah. So we have another question here. It's kind of a generalization. So how long does a business plan need to be? Is it the profitability or the viability of the business as a criteria typically?
It totally depends, which is like no one's favorite answer, but it totally depends on the program that you're pursuing and what they're looking to fund. They're all going to have different things they want to see. Generally speaking, your business plan is generally going to document what is your logic, what is the problem that you're solving, what does the competitive landscape look like, what's the size of this market opportunity, how are you going to make money, how are you going to go to market, what's the potential viability of that, what are the risks, how are you going to manage for those risks, what does the financial model look like? So those are factors you could expect in a standard business plan. You may add sections to that depending on what that program is asking you for. So if you're in the shoes of asking, how do I create a great business plan? Reach out to our team. We can direct you over to some great resources and also connect you with somebody that can help you build your business plan if you need that. That is a paid service. It's not free, but it is something that is available. There's other programs also that do a great job of providing those resources, so we can share those with you too, if that is a question that you have. But the answer is it depends, but it would be your baseline plus customized add-ons depending on the program you're pursuing.
Perfect. Okay, so some other questions that we had here in the chat. There was one question from Leslie about the e-commerce grant that you're talking about. So she says, besides subscriptions, is hiring a marketing consultant for doing web work and landing pages typically eligible?
Generally, no. They want to see you doing other types of things, but each of the CDAP providers has slightly nuanced criteria. So take a look at the platform on the one that matches to you and see what they are going to allow you to do and have a conversation, right? Like when you do the intake with the funder, ask them the questions. They want to help you. They want you to use the money. They have key performance indicators around distributing the funding as well. So they want you to use it successfully. So you can ask those questions too. And there's always ways to get creative, Leslie. So reach out to our team and we can chat with you about that too.
Okay, we have another question here from Tamara. According to your experience, what is the most important factor for a nonprofit to obtain a grant?
So it really depends on what you're looking to pursue. Nonprofits have the ability to access capital through foundations that are like cause specific, outcome and impact specific. We're definitely seeing many foundations on the grants they deploy moving toward impact and outcomes, not just activities, which I think is really healthy and a very positive thing. But you can also access all of the other programs that exist for businesses. So you can also access hiring grants for the most part. There's other programs that if you want to collaborate with a business, you can access. There's so much money if you're in the nonprofit space. And we're actually, our team right now is doing a huge sprint on enhancing our database to better reflect the nonprofit world. So you will see lots of options for you in the Pocketed platform. But again, my feedback to you would be, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish and where you plan to spend money. That would be the reframe. So again, that funding roadmap tool is going to help you think that through. Our grant specialists can help you think that through, but it's very much an it depends, and happy to connect with you offline.
Awesome. And then Danielle has a really good question as well, actually. So she's asking, typically, I know that these are all generalizations and it's very specific to each program, but she's asking, can I use a grant to hire a virtual assistant company that's a hire?
No, unfortunately not. So they have to be on your payroll. Again, that payroll piece, right? The government wants to create jobs for Canadians. You have to hire somebody onto your payroll. You could hire an assistant, absolutely, but they've got to be on your payroll. So it can't be done through another company. That's not eligible. I also saw somebody's question around contractors that I think is the same type of question.
Mm-hmm.
So no, contractors are also not eligible. If you contract to a copywriter, for example, unless you're paying them on your payroll, they're not eligible for wage subsidies and hiring grants. There may be other programs through like a CanExport, for example, if you're doing export related activities for marketing that they're working on, you may be able to subsidize something there, but generally speaking, the government doesn't fund contractors. They want to fund job creation. T4 job creation.
That makes sense. Let's see here. Some of these are a little bit more specific, so I would suggest definitely reaching out to Brianna and Pocketed team. So for some of these very specific questions about your specific use case, but
I see some questions that if it's okay, I'll jump in and answer. I see a question around marketing and advertising as a non-fundable activity. Yes, generally speaking, the question was, is this non-fundable activity specific to government funding? Yes. Generally speaking, the government's not going to give you that magical pool of money to spend on Google ads. So the reframe that I offered was consider hiring a marketer, for example. And then I also saw a question here, as a startup, if you're a startup without past revenue, are you eligible? Absolutely. We used grants when we were an idea. So absolutely, if you have capital. Because again, most grants are going to require you to spend the money and then get reimbursed, or the government will match you dollar for dollar. So yes, you're eligible for many programs, not all, many programs, without having a full year in business or in terms of 12 months of revenue. I'm looking here as well. If CDAP a one-time only grant, or can you reapply annually? It's a one-time only, unfortunately. I also don't think it'll come back. I see Keita's comment that CDAP funding doesn't go to the business, it goes to the consultant. That was true of the big one, Keita. It's why they canceled it. So that program only deployed like a quarter of the money before they shut it down. It was ridiculous. It just created a cottage industry of consultants that made money off the government. It was wild. 730 consultants, terrible program. It was not successful. That's why it shut down. But the other one, the micro grant, is a little bit different. It will directly pay Keita for you to spend money on software, for example. So not totally true of the micro grant. I'm looking here. Tara's asking about IRAP. You have to be an innovation company. Sometimes if you're a traditional company that's investing in innovation, you can consider IRAP. But that's a pretty specific use case, Tara. Reach out to our team. I can't provide a good enough answer right now. Hiba, I think, had to leave, but create your Pocketed account totally free, folks, with that code. Just trying to think if there's any other questions that we can answer here. Federally registered. For Rose is asking if we are a federally registered incorporation, does that increase the chances of eligibility? No, it doesn't. It depends on where your primary like HQ and operations are. So unfortunately not. Policies need to be, yes. Hiba, we agree. There's so many gaps in hiring grants. I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom in case anything new has come through. Tara, can we apply for the new micro grant if we've already received the previous version of the CDAP grant? So CDAP had two streams. One, if you were over a certain revenue threshold, was the bigger grant, and then the micro grant that was for smaller businesses. If you got the big one, you can also have the small one. So yes, you can have both, but you can't have two of the small one. So the Grow Your Business Online, you can only get once, and that's the micro grant. Can I use grants to get someone to do research for me? Danielle is asking. Absolutely, Danielle. There's a number of programs that will do that for you. My Tax might be one to consider, but there's lots and lots. When you create your Pocketed account, you'll be able to explore options for you. Okay. Does innovation grants only given for something related to technology, or could it be any aspect of a business? So innovation depends on what that means to you, Juliana. So it's really, what are you building and how are you spending money to build it? So are you building an app and you need to hire a developer? Well, there's lots of different ways to fund a developer. So it really comes down to what are you spending money on to get to that outcome. And I know that everyone's probably sick of me hearing me say that, but it is so much about where you spend money, folks. It's how you spend money. What are you spending money on to achieve that milestone, to achieve that outcome? That's going to inform the grants that are relevant. Happy to help walk you through that. Reach out to our team. We also run office hours totally free regularly twice a week. So you can join that too to ask questions. Like academic research? Yes, Danielle, indeed. My co-founder has a PhD in bioinformatics and metagenomics. She would be glad to chat with you about academic funding and also collaborations between industry and academia. As an Amazon FBA seller, I need money for inventory. Are there grants for business expansion for my type of business? No, there is generally not grants for things like inventory. I would encourage you to explore debt solutions. There generally aren't grants for that type of thing, spending money on inventory, which I know is like painful, but no, not really. I don't see any net new questions coming in. Have I missed anything, Heather?
I think we've covered most of them, but we are just over time now. So I think if there's anything else, we would really encourage you to reach out directly to Brianna's team. We'll be sending an email tomorrow morning that's going to have a link to this recording so you can rewatch, contact information, a link to all of these resources and programs that Brianna has shared with us, as well as that referral code that will get you that free account, which is really, really fantastic. So I just want to thank you again so much, Brianna, for sharing your extensive knowledge of the Canadian grant landscape and how Pocketed supports startups and small businesses and accessing that grant funding to fuel the growth. So again, if you're interested in integrating grant funding into your financial strategy, make sure you connect with Pocketed team. So we've got that referral code again that we'll share via email. Just want to extend my gratitude again to you and to Scotiabank for facilitating this presentation. So if you're looking to learn a little bit more, we have another StrikeUP Connects event coming up in July. That one is cooperative education as a resource for small businesses. So that one's hosted by the University of Waterloo on Thursday, July 11th at 12 o'clock. So that's going to give you some information so you can discover how hiring co-op students can benefit your business, explore funding options, and learn some simple steps to start hiring today. So we'll throw a link in the chat if you want to check that out, and we'll also send that to you via email. Just as a reminder, again, this is recorded. You'll get a copy of that. And we just really encourage you to take advantage of that referral code from Brianna and Pocketed. Thank you so, so much for your time, Brianna, and all of the incredible questions and participation we had from everyone today. Thank you again to Scotiabank Women's Initiative as well. And we look forward to welcoming you to the next StrikeUP Connects webinar in July. Thank you, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye all.